Hi, my name's Sam.
And I'm Jacob, and welcome to another episode of Geeking Out About It.
Now, this week you might be able to tell by the amount of things that we have decorated around, we're doing a Disney episode, especially because we have a lot of Mickey merchandise here.
There is a lot of Mickey in this house. So, before we get too far into it, let's toss this over to Nadia with a 2-minute history.
With Disney covering almost 100 years since its beginning in 1923, 2 minutes can barely scratch the surface of Disney's success and failures. Walt Disney Productions began with Walt and his brother Roy renting the rear of a small Los Angeles office building. Their first productions were small cartoons like the Alice comedies, and after a successful few years, Walt put a down payment on a lot on Hyperion Avenue, and in 1925, construction of his new studio began. In 1927, Walt lost his beloved cartoon, Ozzel the Rabbit, to the distributor who contracted with him. After 26 episodes, Walt found out Universal had hired his animation staff behind his back to create Disney's success without him. With this blow, Disney kept moving forward and created his next set of characters. The beloved Mickey Mouse, Pluto, Goofy, and Donald Duck were created in 1928, and the rest of his friends followed shortly after. In 1937, Disney began its first full-length animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Snow White changed the world of animation, proving that animation was a viable way to make a full-length feature film. This movie put Disney on the map as a multi-billion-dollar movie machine. With the profits of Snow White, Disney purchased 51 acres of land in Burbank. This new swath of land is where the Walt Disney Company was built. And in the late 1940s, Disney began live-action sound stages and films. Between 1950 and 1960, producing iconic classics like Davy Crockett, Mary Poppins, and the Mickey Mouse Club. Then Disneyland opened in July 17, 1955, being Walt's pet project where he wanted to make dreams come true. Obviously, the story doesn't end there, and there's so much more we could say about the amazing history of Walt Disney, but there's no way we could fit it in just 2 minutes. So with that, back to Sam.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for a brief 2-minute history. We're so glad to have you be a part of our team.
Yes, thank you so much. So, trying to cover Disney in 2 minutes was a little insane. So we're going to discuss more about what Disney has done and what the company has produced,
As well as what they own, because Disney has become a household name and it has a lot of different types of things, ranging from cartoons to live-action productions. Also, they own a lot of real estate, and with that, lots of magical experiences are created based on the growing world of content.
To pick up where Nadia left off with the history of Disney, opening Disneyland in 1955 brought the animations and productions of Walt Studios into the physical world. This was the first time that anyone had tried to bring animation into physical life. Disneyland was one of Walt's visions and dreams. A man that strived for constant perfection wanted this land to be perfect.
Of course, we're going to address the parks later, because Disney also made a huge number of animated films, which once again, we'll be talking about later.
So for this segment, our focus will be on many of the companies and properties that Disney owns. So to begin that off, they own companies or channels such as ABC, History Channel, Lifetime, and ESPN, which is a big deal.
Now, ESPN is a big deal because of the fact that they are a vastly expanding sports network. And people love sports. This is just a fact. There are so many people that love watching sports and interacting with sports, and ESPN has been that for a lot of people.
Yes, and I think it's going to be interesting with Disney Plus coming out to see how their representation of all of their brands gets done. And to see where their viewership goes. And I think that's going to give them more power over their content, because for many years they've been using streaming services such as Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime to display their content. And now with their purchase of the 21st Century Fox, they have, and Hulu servers, they now own that. And so they have their own servers, and they're able to publish their own content and not have to make a contract with someone else to distribute it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes what Disney produces and how fast they do it.
Like you said, Disney has a lot of brands, and this is true. They own brands such as Indiana Jones, Narnia, Muppets, and Grey's Anatomy. Those are a lot of big names, and a lot of people love all those things, especially me.
Right, and I think it's important, we talk about Grey's Anatomy's in there. And, as well as other shows, like, okay, we have History Channel. And National Geographic is partnering with Disney, and there's going to be that content on there on Disney Plus. I think one of the cool things that Disney has done is they don't just have, one specific audience that they cater to. They cater to all audiences. If there's an audience you can think of, or an age group or demographic, there is something, especially now currently in the past 5 years, that Disney is producing for that age group or for that demographic. And I think that's really cool to see a corporation, a media giant, you could call Disney, doing that.
And I think Disney has 3 major hits, which is Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm. Now, in 2006, Disney acquired Pixar after many years of teaming up with them to make movies. They finally sealed the deal and were like, yeah, we're just going to add you guys to our collection of fantastic pieces.
Right, and I think one of the beautiful things about Pixar is that even though Disney has consumed them, technically, right, they are part of Disney, Pixar has held its own. When Pixar produces a film, it's still a Pixar film. Like Toy Story, for example. Technically, that's a Disney movie, but it's Pixar. It has its own division. The animation, the way the characters are done, the endearment of them is still in a Pixar way. It's not just like normal Disney animation. There's a distinct difference, and I think for a corporation so big to have that division is really interesting and is really cool to see.
And you were talking about age ranges and how Disney has content for everyone. And I think that really comes in a stride with Marvel, which was acquired in 2009. And we just seen the conclusion of the Infinity Saga in just this year. And Marvel has vastly expanded. Superheroes are some of my favorite things ever. If I had to pick something that I was passionate about the most, it would probably be the superheroes, but not specifically Marvel. But Marvel has provided that for Disney. And it is something that is fantastic and I absolutely adore.
Right, and with their acquisition of 21st Century Fox, it's really, I don't know if it's interesting, but they now own Avatar and Endgame, which are the 2 biggest or the top grossing movies in the world. And it's interesting to see where power accumulates.
And they finally unified the Marvel Universe by acquiring the Fantastic Four and the X-Men.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But we'll talk more about that in our Marvel episode. Additionally, as I said, Lucasfilm in 2012. Now, still, we will talk about them in another episode because we can't exactly address everything Disney has.
Right, and we have a specific Star Wars episode, which we'll talk about Industrial Lights and Magic, and then Lucasfilm, and really work on that. But, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll discuss the many eras of Disney. See you in a bit.
Audio, man, it's in the air. It's the fluctuations that vibrate our ear holes and make the cochlea sensitive, you can't ignore it, and you try to start measuring it, and it just pulls you in. Well, I used to try to play music on my own, make the sounds from my own hands and instruments, and then I started recording. Upon hearing myself in my recordings, I decided I should just record. When you're a young adult who is serious about pursuing media as a career or even a side hustle, a lot of people won't take you seriously. OMN is cool because not only will they take you seriously, they'll push you and they'll give you all the tools to really try to do something special with it and let you be creative about it. And so that's what's been special about OMN to me. I'm Sam Lay, and I'm a student engineer at Orange Media Network.
Welcome back from the break. Now, in this segment, we are going to be talking about the many eras of Disney. Now, there are 9 main eras of Disney that we will be discussing. First, starting off with the silent era. This is before everything got started. Walt was creating animations, just having a time learning his craft. And this is where we got some pretty interesting things that aren't the most well known, but they kind of set everything up for success.
Right, and then we have the pre-Golden Age, but also is kind of tragic. We have the loss of Oswald, one of Walt's original creations, which he loved so much. Columbia Pictures was his distributor at the time and came in from behind, taking his animation crew, trying to produce it for cheaper, which was Walt's first hard lesson in copywriting.
Now, this led into what we call the golden age of Disney. Now, this is when films like Snow White, Bambi, Dumbo, Fantasia, and Pinocchio were released. Snow White came out and proved the fact that you could make a feature-length film in animation. It set a new standard and then provided Disney with the tools he needed to make some more films.
Yes, and it really laid the base for this next era, the wartime era, also known as the package era. Not so many movies, but we have a lot of shorts like Mr. Toad and many wartime animations, which often aren't the most politically correct or accepted nowadays because they are edgy, and so we'll gloss over them.
Now, this was directly followed up by what is called the Silver Age, also known as the Restoration Age. This is where we got movies such as Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, and finally Jungle Book, which was the last film that Walt Disney worked on himself before his death in 1966.
Yes, and his death may have led to what was considered a dark age, but I think it's also known as the Bronze Age due to the loss of Walt. We have movies such as Aristocats, Robin Hood, Winnie the Pooh, The Rescuers, Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, The Great Mouse Detective, and Oliver and Company. I don't agree that it's that much of a dark age, but who am I to say?
And after every dark age, there is a renaissance. So this provided us with a new standard of Disney films. It led us into having films like The Little Mermaid, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Mulan, and Tarzan, all of which are fantastic films. And personally, Hellfire is my favorite Disney villain song from The Hunchback.
Perfect. Now, once again, a post-Renaissance, we have a decline, also known as a second dark age, but I also disagree that this is a dark age at all because we have such movies as Fantasia 2000, Dinosaur, Emperor's New Groove, which I can groove to, Atlantis, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, Brother Bear, Home on the Range, Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt. Really, not a dark age at all, quite light.
I think that dark ages are pretty mislabeled. But this leads into the second Renaissance, because as I said, after every dark age, there's apparently a Renaissance. So this is also known as the Revival Era, and it gave us movies like Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Winnie the Pooh, a new version of him, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6. Now, these are also probably called, this era, the second revival, is because they acquired Lucasfilm and Marvel during this time. And that's when they vastly expanded upon what they did. So it's not necessarily the animations, and it kind of leads on to more. Now, I'm kind of interested to see, I want to get your opinion on this. What do you think the next era will be called? Because my money's on something that has dark in the name or Renaissance.
My money is on dark ages, especially what's happened in the Marvel universe, and especially the fact that we have, Frozen 2 coming out. Which
looks like an X-Men movie.
It looks like an X-Men movie. It looks like it's gonna have
Frozen hardcore.
Right. It's a little more edgy. It's a little hardcore. I wouldn't agree that it is a dark age, but in the Disney term of dark age, it seems to fit with the pattern. And then I bet you they're gonna have a renaissance after that.
Most likely, because it's interesting that they just continuously go back and forth between the two. I find it incredibly funny as we talk about it more. I think that historians are not very good at coming up with names, so they just keep recycling the same ones over and over and over. And I think that this is kind of like a perfect way to lead into our next segment. I don't know if that was correct, but I do want to talk about this. Now, we mentioned earlier that we were going to talk a little bit about Disneyland and Disney World.
Right.
Now, this is where we'll be doing so. Now, Disneyland, as we said, was made in 1955, and it was created from Walt, who wanted to find a place to make dreams come true, and oh boy did he succeed.
He truly did. And I think, it's really incredible because you have Disneyland, and it's unlike any other production studio. They don't have the same life. Like, there are Disney movies, you watch a Disney movie, and then you get to go to this park, and with every painstaking detail, it's perfected just like Walt wanted. He had an apartment at Disneyland to make sure his dream was perfect. It truly is precision.
There's
And
something
you get to experience it.
Yes.
It's magical.
There's something incredibly immersive about going to a Disney theme park that sets it apart from other things. And Disney has this tone that is cross-planar, like everything has their own thematic thing. They have the different lands. They have Fantasyland, Frontierland, Adventureland, New Orleans Square, Tomorrowland. So many different types of things that are incredibly interesting, and they'll have their own musical things alongside it, and each park has their own segment and things, and it is something that is incredibly fun to do, which is also what the kind of idea that happened with Disney World was in 1971. They wanted to expand upon that. So Walt went off and he purchased a bunch of things under secret aliases, and he had this plan where he didn't want people to know what he was doing, so he set up something which led into the Magic Kingdom, and it was another version of Disneyland in Florida.
Right, and I think that's what makes it almost magical in its own way. Because after Walt's death in '66, he's acquiring this a year earlier. He knows there needs to be another lifeline for this animation studio. And so he's doing this without people knowing, and he's setting Disney up for another world of imagination. And it was really important for Disney, I think, to have this, because after his death, there was a dip in their animations, in the production, in the income of Disney studios. And Disney had never had a huge operating budget. Mm-hmm. They always ran it pretty close because Walt was more about the animation and the perfection of it.
And they became a sort of state where they would provide financial help to Disney and allow them to make things. But I think that we should talk about something a little bit different. Now,
yes.
We might have done something a little bit crazy here at the studio.
Just a little.
We decided that I'm kind of a Disney vet, is how I'd put it. I've been to Disney parks and overall Disney products 20 times. So I thought it would be a really fun idea. My mom, who is someone very special to me, provided me with the opportunity to do all these things. So I wanted to give her like a gift back. So we went to Disneyland.
Yeah, we took my mom, Sam's brother and his mom, and we had a fun time. So with that, let's roll the film.
Hey. What are you guys doing here?
We're getting pictures with Mickey.
Same. Cool. Yeah.
so I gave Jacob the benefit. I'm sitting in the front seat, he's sitting in second. We got the family back there. All right. Did you get hit? No, wait, here's the actual dangerous one. Here it is. Ah! Woo! Oh! 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 Oh no! Oh God! I regret it! I regret it!
It's Hyperspace Mountain Ride. Gonna be a blast.
Flight engineer, repair test. Hit your flashing button.
All right, guys.
Good job, engineer. Right, pilot, push the flashing button to take off.
Here it is.
Pilot on the left. Move your stick to fly right and left. I was just about to say that. Pilot on the right. Pull back on the stick to fly out. And push forward to fly
Okay,
out.
bring it down, bring it down.
Weapons are online.
Up, up. Down, a little bit. Yeah. Up.
Left pilot, hit the booster. Now let's go
Right.
and cross down. Right pilot, make the jump to light speed.
Let's punch it. Woohoo! All right. Okay, get ready to punch it.
Get out of here.
Woohoo! I can't control this.
Time for you to go. And don't worry, payment is on the way. Trust me.
Go ahead and buckle in right this way. Excellent work. You made it back alive. I'm back
And we'll potentially have a brilliant freighter that needs immediate transport back to the maintenance bay. This thing's seen better days.
That was pretty
Better
fun.
fix all that before the Wookiee sees it.
So that was an absolute blast. It was a fantastic experience to be able to go to Disneyland with Jacob and my mom and my brother, and it was overall just a fantastic time. I thank my parents for making me fall in love with Disneyland because I'm so grateful for that. Now, I think that's kind of a perfect way on this kind of high note that we should be heading into our next segment. Normally, I know that we do something where you do your top 5 or top 3 and I do my worst 3, but I couldn't help it because I love Disney so much that I prepared my top 3. Is that okay?
I am totally okay with that because, going to Disney was amazing and I loved every moment of it. It was such a blast to be there with all of you. So yeah, I say let's keep it on a high note. Let's talk about our favorites.
All right, so we're going to be dishing out our top 3 favorite Disney animated movies. First of all, I'm going to start it off with my number 1, which is Fox and the Hound. Now, I love this movie tremendously because I grew up watching this movie. It was one of my favorites as a kid, and I still love it today. It is very sad, surprisingly, at times, especially when she has to leave Todd behind on the road. That makes me cry every time. But it's a very interesting movie to just kind of see the evolution of Disney, and it was one of those things that's kind of underrated, in my opinion. I think that it deserves a lot more credit than it got.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the music in that movie is also fantastic, which brings me to one of my favorites, actually my favorite, Mulan. For me, that was one of the first Disney movies I watched as a kid, and it's always had a powerful message, especially reflection. It's about not always feeling like you have to fall into the role that society gives you. It's about being yourself and stepping into your own shoes, creating your destiny. I also love Eastern Asian culture. And while it's not a great representation of it, the art style is beautiful and the animation is beautiful. And it still has some of those tie-ins that fall beautifully into place with the story.
I'll transition from that into my second, because I agree the music is great. And speaking of fire music, The Great Mouse Detective. This movie is a fantastic movie. It is based off of Sherlock Holmes and the stories of him, but he's a mouse. It's about a mouse named Basil, and he is a fantastic character, and he's so fun to watch. And as a kid, this movie used to scare me just because of the intro bit where the bat kidnaps the toy maker, and it's a fantastic movie. It's so fun. There's so many good songs in it, and I play that song whenever I just feel like I need an uplifting music. I just play the theme for The Great Mouse Detective. And I absolutely adore this movie. It is a fantastic one. It's critically acclaimed, and I think it 100% deserves it.
I completely agree. Let's just continue on this movement of good music. I'm also just going to put this out there. Most Disney music is on point and really, really well done, especially in the solid Disney movies, the classics. My second would have to be Aristocats, because that music is just so uplifting and so much fun to just enjoy. Also, the movie makes me laugh every time. It puts a smile on my face. It's one of those movies that I could sit there and watch it and on loop, and I would be okay with that, just because there's fun character development, there's interesting plots, the animation is beautiful too. For when it came out, the animation is gorgeous, and everybody wants to be a cat I could listen to all day.
Yeah, if you like cats, Aristocats the movie's for you. Now, I think this leads perfectly into our final one. The third favorite movie, which conveniently for each of us, is Treasure Planet.
Right.
Now, Treasure Planet is basically Treasure Island, but in space. So who couldn't love that?
Right, it's the best of both worlds. We have spaceships, we have pirates. What little kid doesn't love both of those? An amazing movie. Once again, the music is just inspiring and gets me every time, especially Jim's theme song.
Now, there's something about Jim that I heavily relate to. Jim as a character for me, especially his theme, I'm Still Here, is just, it hits me really hard because it plays to the themes of my life. And for me, it's something incredibly special. And I really have an appreciation for this movie. It's completely underrated. It suffered in the box office, and overall it's not one of the most beloved Disney movies, and I think it's due to the fact that it was kind of sent off to its death.
It was sent off to its death because Disney wanted to close the hand-drawn animation studio section. But for me, Treasure Planet, it holds so dear because of the fact that I relate to it personally as well. It's in a different way though. It's in the way of I need to watch out for myself too. I need to take care of myself. And I think that's an important lesson that, any Disney movie can teach us, is that there's something we can personally take away. And I think that's part of what makes Disney animation so impactful, is that no matter what the story is, there's something in there for you.
Now, unfortunately, that is all we have in tonight's episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you tune in next week as we talk about another topic. Also, check out more content by KBVR-TV, and check out our YouTube page, where all the full episodes will be posted. If you want to keep up with the show and the rest of KBVR-TV's awesome productions, you should also check out the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, where we post constant updates and tons of extra content. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.
Have a good night.